Big moves being made in the transfer portal by Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks, landing wide receiver from Alabama, Traeshon Holden. This is a big get. Traeshon Holden, a guy who had 6 touchdowns, averaged right around 13 yards reception last year for the Crimson Tide. So what you get in Traeshon Holden is some proven production, if that makes sense. Like, it'd be one thing if you do this at the FCS level. No knock against the FCS level, but that's something we're seeing now in the day and age of the transfer portal is guys transferring up a level. Traeshon Holden is transferring from the SEC to the Pac-12. So you don't question, hey, how legit is that 6 touchdowns? Hey, how legit is that 13 yards reception? I promise you, it's plenty legit. A guy from the West Coast, and he's now coming back to the West Coast playing for the Oregon Ducks. This is a very big get for Dan Lanning and company. Adding some production to the wide receiving position after they lost Thornton. They lost Cota a year ago. Like, they're starting to make some moves to reload that position group, which is obviously crucial to compete in the Pac-12 and to play the style of offense they're going to play under their new offensive system. So this is a big get, like I already mentioned, but I want to delve a little bit deeper into this kind of acquisition for Oregon. From what you remember at the beginning of the year from Oregon was how they lost to Georgia. And the big thing that was being said at that point in time is, hey, the talent gap, right? Kirby Smart stacked recruiting class on recruiting class on recruiting class with a bunch of 5 stars next to those guys' names. And Kirby Smart went so far as to say that in his post-game press conference, saying, the reason we won today, because we got better players. And I don't think he meant that in a disrespectful nature. I don't think he meant that to take a shot at Dan Lanning. He was just being very matter-of-fact and blunt in that, hey, from a personnel standpoint, at Georgia right now, we're superior. And I promise you, there's 2 sides to every press conference comment. Dan Lanning heard that, thought about it, went recruiting. And they're recruiting really competitively at the high school level, but if you want to flip it in the Pac-12, there is multiple cases now you can flip it by way of the transfer portal. So Dan Lanning heard that and is now going to work in the transfer portal. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, we would love to have you at the party. We have had a ton of you Oregon faithful join the party. We're glad you're here. If you have not yet joined the party and subscribed, no time like the present. Portal season, turning up the heat. Traeshon Holden just committed. Recruiting season, signing days around the corner. Still got bowl games left. This is your spot for everything that you know and love about college football, The People Show. Also, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at JDPikel. A lot of interaction to be had there. So going back to what I had just mentioned, in the Pac-12, the gap is a little bit lesser than it would be in other conferences, meaning the portal is a very feasible way to flip your program on day 1, or year 1 rather, and be much more competitive in year 2. And for Oregon, let's be real, they're not far off. It wasn't like Dan Lanning just inherited a poverty program and had to find ways to piece together wins. No, they were competitive in the portal last year, getting Bo Nix, and they were competitive, obviously, so far in the portal this year, landing Traeshon Holden and also a linebacker from Iowa the other day as well. So they're going to be a player in the portal going forward. And Oregon, in my humble opinion, is a sleeping giant. Here's why. Resources are no issue for them. You ever heard of Nike? You ever heard of Phil Knight? Well, they have that at their fingertips. That is a huge asset, a huge resource. They have people within the building and fans that are helping fund the NIL resources to make them competitive in that space as well in the portal. Like, they have access to some of the top tier talent. When it comes to the NIL, they are one of the haves in college football. So that's first and foremost. You got the firepower. The second is you have the structure and are continuing to develop the structure. It all starts with the head coach. Dan Lanning is a guy that has been around a lot of winners. He understands winning. He understands the structure that has to be in place to get your program to be at the top tier in college football. And I think with the appropriate amount of time, the adequate amount of time, he's going to get Oregon to that level, because this staff and Dan Lanning himself is going to build Oregon like an SEC program. And I know a lot of you West Coast fans, a lot of you that love the Pac-12, and I do too, are going to kind of groan at that because you have a certain, I don't know the right word to say this, a certain feeling about the SEC, which is fair, which is warranted. You feel how you want to feel. But for Dan Lanning to build it in an SEC style of program, that just means it's going to be tough and it's going to be physical. They're going to score points. Yes, got guys like Traeshon Holden you just acquired to score points, got an OC now to score a lot of points as you already have before, but you're going to build it in the middle. And teams that are built in the middle, at the first and second level of your defense, on the offensive line that are strong up there, those are the kind of teams that are tough, that can move the opposition against their will. And when you have a tough football team, the tough football teams are the ones that play in late December, that play in January, that go from a program to a program. We get asked about that a lot. Hey, what's program? What's program? A program are the ones that win in November, December, and January because they're tough, and that starts with physicality. So Traeshon Holden, I promise you, is just the tip of the iceberg in Eugene. I know he's a wide receiver, and we just talked about being tough at Oregon for a long time. Traeshon Holden is very tough in his own right. He's going to help add some more physicality on the outside as well that Oregon is going to be known for in the coming years. So a huge get for Dan Lanning and company. Lanning, one of the top receivers in the transfer portal currently. He's going to add some big playability. He's a proven guy in terms of production, and it's a receiver, obviously, but I think this also shows that Dan Lanning is going to be competitive in the portal for anybody and everybody. They are going to be a hunter when it comes to talent acquisition on the recruiting trail, but also in the beautiful thing that is currently the transfer portal in college football. This has been The Hard Count. Nick Brake, lifting heavy, making everything that you see here happen. This is your show, all right? This is the People's Show. For everything that you know and that you love about this beautiful sport, we got you covered 12 months out of the year. The game doesn't take a break. We don't either. We're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.